Thank you, Angela, for bringing in that swing wide the doors. I called Angela yesterday, just shortly after Reverend Victoria called me and asked me if I would do the service today. And I knew what I wanted to do because I was scheduled to speak on the 3rd of May. So I had already worked on my lesson. I do that, excuse me. Some ministers can do it the night before. I never could do that. I have to have a little bit more time for it. So when Victoria called me, then I immediately called Angela because I knew I wanted to start the lesson with Swing Wide the Doors. And there's a reason for that. A couple of weeks ago, and some of you will maybe remember, Reverend Victoria happened to mention that Reverend Georgie said that the church door was only open that far. And then she went on to talk about doors and so forth. Well, yes, I did say that. But there's a little bit more to it. And so I thought, that gives me an opportunity to kind of share about that. Sometimes when I'm speaking to someone, and it's an intense kind of a conversation, or maybe an emotional one, I kind of get a download of a vision, just real quick little vision, and then it disappears. And that's what happened that day. We were on the telephone, and we were talking about Unity of Salem. That's the main thing we talk about. She might be in love with it, but I've been in love with you for a lot longer than she has. Thank you. And so I got that little vision, okay? And I saw the church door just open about that far. And I mentioned it to her. And then she mentioned it to you. Now, we know our doors are wide open. And we know the invitation to all the people that could possibly be here and are ready to be here to come on down. Come on down. So there's a lot of metaphysics to that song, Swing Wide the Doors. And I would guess almost everyone in this room at one time or another had to swing wide the doors in their life, or you would not be sitting in this church, except for a couple of people. One would be Elizabeth, and one would be Pat, because I know they were raised in unity. So I don't want to cut anybody out. Was anybody else in this room raised in unity? Oh, right. More than I thought. Ginny, were you raised in unity? Okay. Well, that's absolutely fantastic. More than I thought. Those people that were raised in unity, they just grew up with this thought system. But most of us came from traditional backgrounds, fundamental churches, and so forth. And at some time in our lives, something moved inside of us, that still small voice spoke something inside of us that said, there must be a better way. It would be fun sometime to sit in a circle and share that time, because I'll bet a lot of you remember when that happened for you. I know I do, so I'm going to just share it because I've got the pulpit, I've got mine. So I'm going to share my story a little bit with you. It was late 70s, maybe 79, early 80s, someplace around in there, and I was not a very happy person. I was uncomfortable in my skin, I was uncomfortable in my marriage, I was just uncomfortable in life. Now, I've always been a ferocious reader, and so I was in a bookstore. I love used bookstores. as long as they smell good. So I was in there, and I was wandering around looking for books, and I turned the corner, and as the story goes, the book fell off the shelf and hit me on the head, and I knew that was the one I was supposed to buy, right? It was by Ruth Montgomery. It was called Here and Hereafter, and it was a book about reincarnation. At that point in my life, I don't know that I'd ever even heard the word. I certainly did not know what it meant at all. But as I read it, something started to move inside of me, and I said, "What, of course? This is the only thing that makes sense." And so then, of course, that book, I began to scout out that part of the bookstore and started buying more of Ruth Montgomery's books, and some of the others. I got into the Seth books and so forth. And what I'm getting so full, okay? So I want to share it, right? Because that's what we do. So I was sharing it with family, I was sharing it with friends, and it was so exciting. And till one day, one of the friends said, "Georgie, this is nice conversation, fun conversation for a cocktail party. But that's all." Whoa, now that took the wind out of my sails. It never dawned on me that you have to be ready. You have to be ready. And the people I was sharing with, they just weren't. They just weren't ready. They were where they were. And that was totally okay. So I just kind of took a step back. And I thought, okay, I won't share anymore. And I didn't. I didn't share anymore. But I knew something big was happening, because I wasn't just reading things that were fun to talk about at a cocktail party. I was reading about a way of life, a brand new way of life, one totally beyond where I grew up, where my parents taught me. And friends, it was literally a physical pulling inside of me, because I wanted this way of life so badly. Now, at that particular time in my life, it wasn't possible. It, of course, became possible in a few years, but it wasn't possible right then. So I had to be patient and just wait until the time was right to begin to step into that way of life that I could just feel so strongly about, and open, totally let the swing wide the doors to that way of life. So anyhow, that's I wanted to explain that comment that I made. So we are working with this book that Reverend Victoria brought to us. Great big one here, Unapologetic Manifestation. And if she were here, she would be doing the second step. But she's not here, and I was scheduled to do the third step. So we're going to reverse them, and I'm going to do the third step today, and you're going to want to be here next week because she'll probably do the second step. So the third step has a lot to do with patience and with passion and with perseverance. And that equals grit, according to this author. So when I read the material, I was laying in bed about 4 o'clock in the morning, and things were starting to spin in my mind. And grit, that's an interesting word, kind of gritty. It's kind of a fun word, G.R.I.T. I wonder if I can make an acronym out of that. So I started to play with it just a little bit, and I got some words. I thought, oh, that maybe it would work. But I wasn't quite satisfied. It wasn't just what I wanted. It didn't have the juice that I wanted it to have. So now my partner, Paula, she does a lot of word puzzles and things like that. And so I told her what I was doing, and I told her the one I'd come up with. And I said, but it's not quite right, Paula. She said, okay, let me think. And so she thought, and she came up with the right one, which is simply, where'd I put that? God refines intentional thought. God refines intentional thought. Let's see if it works, okay? So first thing we're going to go to is the G, and that's God, of course. Now, I don't use that word God an extra amount of time. I will use universe, Holy Spirit. I really love Holy Spirit. I use Holy Spirit all the time, all day long. And I think that I got out of the habit of using the word God as much because through the 21 years that I was the minister here and had that privilege and that honor to be here, there was a lot of people that came in those doors, and they came pretty much directly from their fundamental church background, where the word God was used as a punishment, okay? You know, mend your ways or God is going to punish you. And that's not the way Unity thinks at all, okay? We have a God that is loving and whose great good pleasure is to give us the kingdom, not to punish us. God doesn't even forgive us because God has never condemned us. And without condemnation, there is no need for forgiveness. So I kind of backed off a little bit from that word God because it was uncomfortable for some people. There's one power and one presence in the universe and in my life. God the good. Okay? That is what Unity teaches about God. So the second word is refine. Now, Google would tell us to refine means to remove impurities, to improve something by making small changes in a particular idea, theory, or method. To make small changes. Okay? Sometimes we get this nudge, we get this dream, we get this idea that we want to do, we want to pursue. And it feels good, and it feels like that's the way we're going to go, and we start to put some action to it. And as we start to move through in the action pieces, suddenly maybe a new book comes up, or a class, or a teacher, or even a little detour. But it is all directed to this goal that we have. It enhances it. It brings a little change to it. But it makes it bigger. It makes it better. That is the Holy Spirit at work, refining our decisions, our goals, putting in that small little nudge. And that's what Reverend Victoria meant a week or so ago when she talked about co-creating. We co-create with the universe co-creates with us as we go through our life and through the things that we are trying to achieve in our life. So those little things that happen, they're just refining things. Okay, so let's look at intentional or intention. It's an aim or a plan But one of the books I picked up when I was going to work with this is The Intention Experience by Lynn McTaggart. Anybody hear about it ever? It's written in 2007, so it's been around for a while, but it's one of those that stayed on my bookshelf, even though I gave away tons of books when I retired. There was always this little group that just seemed to hang on, and this was one of them. So let's see what she says about intention here in the introduction. She makes a quote, she gives us a quote. Marilyn Schlitz, who was the vice president of research and education at the Institute of Noetic Science, defined intention as the projection of awareness with purpose and efficacy towards some object or outcome. Now listen to this part. To influence physical matter. To influence physical matter, they believed thought had to be highly motivated and targeted. That immediately reminded me of Myrtle Fillmore's story. And I know that you've heard it before, but it's well worth telling over and over again. Now, you folks are new here, so see, I get to tell it to somebody who's first time maybe hearing it. So Myrtle and Charles Fillmore were the co-founders of Unity. Myrtle grew up in a family where the belief, the family story, was that the young women in their family quite often developed tuberculosis. And so she grabbed that belief, apparently, and sure enough, she got ill in her teen age time. And she didn't get better. She continued to get worse over the years. She and Charles did get married. They had 3 sons, but Myrtle continued to get ill. I'm kind of cutting this down a little bit so it takes too long. She finally got to the point that the doctors gave her 6 months to live. Just 6 months. Well, Charles and Myrtle often went to lectures in the city, in Kansas City where they were, and they went to a lecture one night with a fellow called E.B. Weeks. And I don't know, of course, if he was looking directly at Myrtle when he said this or not, but it was kind of like everybody else was not there, and he said the words to her that helped her swing wide the doors, friends. You are a child of God. You do not inherit illness. Bingo. Light bulb. And that belief that she grew up with and had taken in so deeply just became dust and fell to the ground. So they went home, and the next day she went into Charles, and she said, this is what I want to do. She needed his permission. This is a time when that was necessary. And she said, I am going to heal myself. I'm going to go in my room, and for 2 hours every day, I am going to work on healing myself. And my door will be shut. The boys have to stay out, the mother-in-law has to stay out, the husband has to stay out. Don't disturb her. And so for those 2 hours every day, she talked to her body. She apologized to her body because she was mad at it. She was angry at her body. It wasn't doing what it was supposed to be doing for her to be a mother for these 3 kids. So she apologized to her body. And then she began to bless her body, all of her body. And she read all of the New Testament healing stories that were there. And in 2 years, she healed herself. It took her 2 years. But at the end of 2 years, she left her room and she went to Charles and she said, I am healed and so are you. And then she lived another 40 years and went on, the two of them went on to bring unity to us. And like Victoria said a few weeks ago, we are sitting in their dream. I love that. I thought that was so cool when she said that. We are sitting in their dream. And we are. But there is somebody else's dream that we're sitting in, and I want to acknowledge that today. And that's my friend Susan Thomas. Because, yes, give it a hand. That's right. And for some of you, you won't know this story. So good, that's good. I get to tell it again. Susan was a young mother with a couple of tiny boys, and she and her husband was going from Salem every Sunday up to Portland to go to the Portland Unity Church. And that's a long time, a long way when you're doing that every Sunday. And so one day, Susan got the courage and the nudge from Spirit, and on the way out the door, the assistant minister, Gwen Norman, was there, and she said to Gwen, she said, how do I get a Unity Church in Salem, Oregon? And Gwen said, just do it. Now that sounds a little flippant, but Gwen didn't just walk away from it at that point. She spent an entire year. And so we are also sitting in Susan's dream as well. And I am so grateful that she had the courage to do what she did and to get this Unity Church in Salem in place. And Elizabeth's family was involved in the beginning as well. So we've got deep roots, friends. About 55 years. Susan and I were talking the other day. About 55 years. So the last one is thought. If we're working here on God refines intentional thought. Oh dear. We do it, don't we? A lot. If you're like me, it does not be quiet very often up there. It really doesn't. It's been chattering at me since 3 o'clock this morning. Just lots of times it's worry thought, but this morning it wasn't. I was running over these notes in my mind as I laid in bed. So the monks would tell us that we must work on mindfulness. I can do it for about a minute and a half. Anybody beat me? I don't know why it is so difficult to do that, but it sure seems like it is for me anyhow. So it is those focused thoughts, that change physical matter. It was Myrtle's focused thoughts on her body that changed the physical matter of her body. And that leads me to telling you about something that Diane Moskal and I are going to begin on May the 6th. Diane is the head of the prayer team. And I told her right away that I would be on her team, because we're buddies from way back. Diane and I worked together here for a good 15 years. Yeah. And so I was glad to be on her team. And so then, as part of my process, I began to think about this because I read in some material that was given me that the team is hoping to start a prayer group once a week. I thought, Then I remembered that about 15 years ago, I did a prayer group, but it was a focused prayer group, and I think I got it from the intention experience there of Lynn's. It was summer, going into summer, and finances of the church, like all of them, go do that. And so it was kind of in a slump a little bit. And I knew that with summer, the attendance kind of goes down because this is the Pacific Northwest, and we get to play in the sunshine in the summer. And so we do so. And so I thought, okay, how about if we put a focused prayer group together? And so I arranged it, and we had, I don't know, it wasn't a lot of people, maybe 10 or 12 or so. I don't remember. I know Paula was helping me with it as well. And we decided to focus on the word prosperity. Now, keep in mind, just like Sherry read about abundance, prosperity is the same thing. Yes, it's about money, because everything is about money, isn't it? Everything in our life is about money. But it's so much more than money. When we talk about abundance or we talk about prosperity, it is so much more. I mean, we're talking about abundance of food, abundance of health, abundance of people, abundance of willingness, abundance of wisdom. And we could go on and on and on with it as well. So we had I think it was just 4 weeks. I've been trying to pull this memory up from 15 years ago or thereabouts. Excuse me. So we had our 4 weeks together, and then we were finished and just went on with life. And about 6 weeks after that, we got a letter in the mail from an attorney telling us that so-and-so had passed away, and we were inheriting $150,000. Now, my goal, because my mind did this, it would have happened anyway, because the lady was going to die someplace down there. Yes, it would have happened anyway. It's the timing. It's the timing between the class and the focus that we were putting on abundance, and how quickly that letter came in and that $150,000 arrived. So we're going to start on Wednesday, May the 6th. We'll be meeting from 1:30 to 2:30, just an hour, okay? And we'll just do the 4 Wednesdays in May to begin with. Now, I'm kind of hoping we can continue, but let's just do this. We'll just do the 4 Wednesdays in May. And if, as I'm talking, Spirit is tapping you on the shoulder and saying you need to be part of that, then talk to Diana after the service and let her know that you're interested in being part of that. You do not have to be on the prayer team, per se, okay? You can just be part of the focused prayer group. Now, I'm going to try a little metaphor here. I think it's called metaphor. Let's see if it works. I'm hoping so. Let's look at it this way. This is the way this works. Say that there's a small group of us, and we've got a cauldron. We're going to make a soup, okay? And the base is there already, but each one of us has a special ingredient It's a special ingredient that absolutely no one else has, but we have it, okay? And we are going to put that in the soup. So we get together, and each one of us go ahead and put our very special ingredient in that soup. And we create an incredible soup that never runs out. It is always full, and it's always feeding people. Now let's stretch out a little bit further with our imagination here, and let's change the physical soup to energy. To energy, okay? So now we have the cauldron, and it's got the basic universal energy that is always here. Right now, it's always here. It's right there, okay? And we have a group that's gathered around, and we have decided to make joy our focus, okay? So each one of us is going to spend some time getting in touch with a memory that is so filled with joy, so filled that it happened 20 years ago maybe, but we can still remember what we were wearing, we can remember where we were, and we feel the feelings again. And all those feelings of that energy are going to be deposited into this cauldron of basic energy. And it's sending off little colorful sparks, and it's beautiful. And into that is our focused prayer of abundance for unity of Salem. And we serve it to the universe. And as it is God's great good pleasure to give us the kingdom, there's a connection and a return. Let's take it inside. Okay, I'm just going to ask you to take a deep breath, because such words and such stirring of imagination kind of sets us on fire inside sometimes. Although I also know that there are other memories as well, memories that are maybe sad. And so, sweet Spirit, this morning we just open our hearts and our minds, and we let ourselves touch a memory that is filled with joy, with love, with peace, with prosperity, with kindness, with generosity, whatever it is, whatever little memory just kind of bubbles to the surface. You know that's the memory that you wish to explore, to relive. Maybe you haven't thought about it for a long time, and suddenly there it is, fresh and full, and you can feel it. And no matter where your life is right now, or what is going on in your life right now, you can feel that peace or joy. And you know that is a moment when God was blessing you. It was a moment of grace. Grace, my friends. Bask in it. Bask in that grace. Live it again. And know that the feelings, whether they are peaceful or joyful or generous or kind or whatever they might be, they haven't gone away. Oh, the event was over years ago, but that feeling of connection with the Holy Spirit, that God connection, that's alive and well within us, all of us, all of the time. We just get so distracted. Holy Spirit would just get so distracted by our humanness. We need to take a page from Myrtle Fillmore's book and find the time to step aside and reach for that peace and joy within ourselves, because it is there. You're proving that to yourself right now. It is still alive and well and nourishing. It nourishes you. It is a living memory. It is a living feeling. And now just take a moment and thank that memory. Whatever it might be, and it might have been with other people, just offer your gratitude. And know that it is still alive and well in your consciousness. And for that you are so grateful. To be reminded again. And now just take a deep breath. Bring yourself and your awareness to where you are in the chair that you're sitting on. And when you are ready, you may open your eyes.